Well, hello, friends and listeners. Today's episode is a really special one. It is with Kevin Rose, who is one of the most recognizable individuals in the startup world. As a founder, he and his team created the news aggregation site Dig, which became a household name, putting him on magazine covers around the world and really creating an iconic brand in Silicon Valley with Dig.com. But it wasn't a story that ended in champagne or ringing an IPO bell. So more on that in a bit. As an investor, he is, his list of angel investments is next to impossible to beat. Twitter, Facebook, Square, just to name a few. Pretty incredible. He also was podcasting back in 2004 when the world was still just learning how to pronounce the word iPod. So suffice it to say, if he is into it, there is a very likely chance it's about to become a very big deal. He is not only incredibly honest and open about his successes and failures, but he's enthusiastically trying to get others to share just as openly. So I think that's in full alignment with this podcast. We go below the line on what it's like to build something to hundreds of millions of dollars, then to see it crumble, on how we tend to overcorrect after failure, the necessary side of experiences that help us mature, and we touch on spouses and their integral part in the equation as an entrepreneur, and a lot more. Below the Line is brought to you by Playcast Media. Do you want the easiest way, and I mean the easiest way, to set up a professional premium podcast in your home or office? Go to playcastmedia.com and get their premium podcasts in a box delivered right to you. Everything you need, all 14, 15 different pieces, all the equipment. Instead of 30, 40 hours of research of what plugs into what, it is all sent to you at a price you can't beat. And it comes with the info that guides you on setting it all up, everything you need for a professional premium podcast in your home or office. I'm recording this on Playcast equipment, and it is the best out there. And it saved me. I spent hours and hours before just going with Playcast to have everything work perfectly together. And you can check it out. It is just makes everything so straightforward. Playcastmedia.com. It's playcastmedia.com. And you can tell them James sent you. So without further delay, let's get into it with the incomparable Kevin Rose. This is Below the Line.
Cool.
Kevin, what's up, man?
Thanks for having me here today.
Well, thank you for having me over to you're staying right by the Embarcadero.
Yeah.
Pretty epic.
I'm in town
views.
for a day, so I'm glad we got this actually worked out.
I know, this could not be a better view. Maybe in the world. It's pretty amazing view. San Francisco's beautiful from this side of the city, but I never make it over here.
Yeah, I actually I wanted in a interior room because for the noise level, and they gave me this awesome view room. So awesome, free upgrade.
Yeah, most hotels don't have views like this. It's amazing.
We can see the Bay Bridge from here, which is nice.
Dude, incredible. It is. I actually, the only time that I see this whole scene is I do the little Peloton scenic rides. And I do the Embarcadero all the time, the city that I live in all the time. And it's gorgeous, but I actually never, probably twice a year make it over here. It's gorgeous. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for doing it. We've got this episode's drink is a super special one, but also very fitting, is my morning matcha concoction. And K-Rose, you're a big fan of matcha, huh?
I am. Yeah, I've been drinking matcha for a long time. And it is a pretty unique form of green tea in that you're actually drinking the entire leaf. So it starts off as a tea called tencha, and then it is, typically ground up and it turned into this powder type form. And you add a little hot water and whisk it, and it's a great tea. It's very packed with a lot of L-theanine and other things, that compounds that allow you just to kind of chill out a little bit.
Right. How'd you come across it? Oh, cheers, by the way.
Yeah, cheers. By the way, I'm way over caffeinated already, so I'm gonna do little sips.
Yes, sip lightly then.
You just chug the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a little shot. It's
Yeah.
a very weird way of drinking matcha.
You're
but-
mixing other stuff in here. This is not just pure matcha.
Yes, yeah. There's
Because it has quite the bite on it.
I know it has, and that's why it's a shot. Because don't really drink it for the taste, but it's this thing I was telling you right before we started recording. I think I started making 5-6 years ago, and yeah, it's matcha, and then some adaptogens, some Ayurvedic herbs, some there's some mushrooms in there as well, like lion's mane, and CDP choline.
Oh, you did some choline in there as well. How many milligrams of choline are you?
This formulation, I moved it around. So it was alpha GPC and then changed it to CDP choline. And I don't know off the top of my head. Actually, I have this, I was telling you this, Dr. Dan Engel, who's advisor like Alpha Brain stuff. So he's helped with the formulation. We moved it around like 40 times. It's just this personal thing that I just got so much benefit from matcha. Then I loved adding like ashwagandha for de-stressing me, and then just went kind of hardcore into all of the forums and online research, and then gotten put in touch with Dan, who helped with the formulation after that. But yeah, do you know a crap ton about nootropics and tea? But first on tea, you're a tea master?
Yeah, so I basically got into tea in the year 2000, so quite a while ago. It was New Year's, and everyone was kind of giving up something, New Year's resolutions type thing. And at the time, I was like, well, I should probably do something that's healthy for me. And I just decided to stop drinking soda. And so I was like, okay, at the time I was drinking.
How old were you?
Oh gosh, what was I like? I'm dating myself now. At early 20s kind of thing, 21, I guess, something like that. And basically I decided, okay, this is the time to do something healthy. I gave it up. I was drinking a lot of sodas at the time. I was addicted to Dr. Pepper. That was my kind of go-to.
All right.
And then I had
I'm from Texas. I friggin' love Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, Dr. Pepper. Mr. Pibb was also good. That was another competitor to Dr. Pepper.
Right.
But so I was one of those things where I needed that boost. I needed something, because I was getting caffeine there, I was getting sugar there, so I needed something to kind of like kickstart my day. And so initially that was straight up orange juice, like just like give me the pure sugar. I can like mainline that. So I did the sugary kind of juices, but then quickly realized that I was just substituting something that was bad for me for something else that was bad for me. And just having that much sugar in any one setting is not a good idea. So I thought, let's try tea, and I got into tea. I started buying at first just a kind of crappy store-bought bagged tea, and I didn't really enjoy it. I remember thinking like, oh, there has to be something better. And then I heard about loose leaf tea, and I was like, okay, well, I'm actually going to go to this tea store and talk to them. And they instructed me in terms of...
Where were you? What city were you in?
At the time, I was in San Francisco. And so I had just moved out here. And so there's a great place called Red Blossom Tea Company out here that I think has the best teas. And you can also order online. Red Blossom is a great store. I don't have any affiliation with them, but they do some of the best imported oolong teas come from Red Blossom.
Oh, awesome.
So I realized, wow, there's a whole nother world here. And like any proper geek, I like to go in and get, go really deep into something and figure it out. So I started just like trying to understand the different regions, the different types of tea. It's really interesting in that Camellia sinensis, the main tea plant, is actually the same plant that creates all different types of tea. So white tea, oolong tea, black tea, yellow tea, pu'ers, all the green teas. They're all from the same plant.
Oh, wow.
It's just the process that is done to the leaf. So after the leaf, I should say it's a couple different things. One, how old is the plant? What area of the plant are you picking? Is it just the like newly sprouted fresh buds from the plant? or is it a 500-year-old tea plant, right? And then after that, after you pick the leaves, how are they being processed? Are they being crushed? Are they being rolled? And then when do they get fired that actually stops the oxidation process?
Right.
And then, and some of them can be fermented. So how are they being fermented? It's like a pu'er tea is an example of a tea that is fermented like wine. And, you can keep pu'er teas like wine. I have some pu'er teas that I purchased in China, 12 years ago, and I'm aging them. And, as you age them, they become more and more valuable. So, there's little small bricks of pu'er tea that are worth, tens of thousands of dollars,
really?
Which is really crazy. But those are, 100 plus years old kind of thing.
Can you get, I remember hearing one time on white tea, you could have a semi-drunken feeling. You drink enough of it. That could just be.
I think that's pretty much any tea.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I mean, but white tea is, it does tend to. Some people say. So this is where it gets really. There's a lot of kind of pseudoscience here. Like some people say it has a lot of caffeine. Some people say it doesn't have that much caffeine. I do know one thing for sure. This is a fun little hack for people out there. If you're thinking about having some caffeinated tea, but you don't want to have a ton of caffeine, and like great examples, this morning I had, a cup of coffee, and now if I want to have some green tea, the best thing to do is steep the tea for about 30 seconds and then pour off that first steeping, because 80% of the caffeine is released in those first 30 seconds of the steep. And so from that point forward, you can continue to enjoy and have the tea, because it gets, some high quality tea you can steep 4 or 5 times,
right?
And still get the great flavor, but not have the impact of the caffeine.
Yeah. Interesting.
So anyway, I studied tea. I went to a university that teaches tea, and took tea courses, learned about the regions, traveled all throughout China, fermented my own pu'er cakes out in the middle of nowhere. And was this just
always on the side, or was there like
always
on
the side?
Year or two, you're like, I'm going hard into this?
It doesn't take that long to become certified tea master. It's like, a year type process. So this isn't like a 5-year degree type thing. So, I went and, you learn how to cup tea properly. You learn the different temperatures that are required for certain teas, about the different regions. And, you eventually start doing some blind tasting of different teas. So,
and you have the tattoo of
Shenong.
Yeah.
So, 3,500 years ago, he is the referred to as like the person that discovered tea. So, he has this kind of ancient text that is, he was an herbalist essentially that was writing all about these different types of herbs. So, he is accredited to discovering, thousands of different herbs. And one of the herbs that he mentions is the tea plant. And that is the person that the Chinese attribute to discovering tea. And the Japanese say that it was a meditating monk that kept falling asleep. And this is a great story. Kept falling asleep, and so he decided to cut off his eyelids,
right? Yeah.
Throw them to the ground, and the tea plant grew from there. So it's
up
to
leaves
you.
Look like eyelids. Yeah.
So you can decide: is it the eyelids that was the true story, or is it the herbalist? But so it's just kind of a fun thing that when I got certified, I went and had him tattooed on my arm.
That is so awesome. And what would you say is your go-to tea each morning? Well, I actually, zooming out, you also are a huge fan of fasting. So it sounds like you go pretty deep into what you're putting into your body or how you're treating, the temple. As they say, what are some of your favorite teas? But then also, what's your entire morning kind of ritual like?
Yeah, so I would say that I go back and forth between wanting to do coffee or wanting to do tea. I do love coffee. It's for me, I've started, playing around with roasting coffee beans at my house and things like that. So that's been fun. But I would say that my typical day is based on the science that I've seen out there in terms of intermittent fasting. And the one study that I really like is, I think it was around 3,000 women that had breast cancer, but were in remission. And they did one simple change, and they signed up these women to receive text messages. And you would text the service telling them when you had your last bite of food. And they would then send you a text 13 hours later saying it was okay to have your first bite of food in the morning. And the women that were on this protocol of fasting just 13 hours, remember 8 of those hours are while you're asleep.
Yeah.
So 13 hours of which is super easy to do.
Right.
Anyone can
The
do
other
that.
11, you can eat whatever you want.
Yeah,
right?
it's just like delaying the start of your breakfast by like an hour or something, or maybe 2 hours, depending. They had a 30. I won't nail this number, but it was either a 36 or 30% or 38% reduction in reoccurrence of breast cancer. So a pretty massive reduction in the reoccurrence of breast cancer, which they had prior. So, we know that giving your body a little bit of a break and some downtime to do repairs is a good thing. Now, it gets crazier from there. People fast for 16 hours, 18 hours. People do a monk fast, which is 3 days, water only. People do 5-day fast now. But the idea is that you're trying to create this autophagy, this kind of like this idea that there are cells in your body that could potentially turn cancerous, that if you starve them, because they're already weakened, they're already a little messed up, they will die off first. And so you just have to basically pull out the nutrients and do these types of fasts to starve them off. And there's still
is that the hormetic response?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's when you have when you eat something that is that causes that reaction to happen. So like a type of plant. But this is essentially. The idea, we don't know the proper cadence for this. We don't know, like, should you be doing a 5-day fast once a quarter? No one really has dialed that in yet. But that's what scientists are working on. So Walter Longo out of USC is working on this. Sachin Panda, another scientist based out of the Salk Institute, is working on a lot of this, specifically tied to circadian rhythms as well. So there's a lot of really, really kind of compelling science that's coming out, enough to where I looked at that and said, okay, wow, this is going to help people. I'm not sure what the right formula is going to be for every individual, but let's start, helping spread the message. And so, knowing that, I created an intermittent fasting app called Zero.
Right.
Which now has been
got
crazy.
It on my home screen. It's great. Yeah.
It's
so
nuts.
simple.
Yeah,
so simple, but so helpful.
We have over 300,000 people fasting every single day with it, which is crazy. Yeah. So that's been great. But I primarily
great Apple Watch app too, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. That's
very few companies invest in that side of things. And I love everyone that does, because I try to leave my phone in a drawer for as long, as much of the day as I can, and just use the watch. And,
that's Mike Mazer, who's the CEO who took the project over from me, has done a great job building that stuff out, and he built that Apple Watch app, and it's very, very simple app. And easy to use. Yeah. And
so and kind of zooming out from there, it sounds like I have so many questions, because and by the way, for listeners, your wife is a scientist, so it's not just you just cruising forums and coming up with this stuff. It's actually probably pretty well understood. And
well, the other thing too is I don't ever make any claims for anything. Like the best thing you can do as an individual that are trying to talk about this stuff, especially if you're not a scientist, is just to really read the papers and say, okay, is there true peer-reviewed science here that we can point to and say, this is kind of what we know? And just knowing that, you can have, it's that old saying of like strong convictions, but like loosely held, like just knowing that the science can change at any point in time. But this is kind of directionally where we think things are going.
Right. And zooming out on just, we will touch on your career in tech, but it sounds like with tea, with fasting, where did your obsession on that side of things come from? And I don't know what the meta observation for that would be. Would it be kind of like optimization, or maybe it's health span and lifespan? But where did the obsession on that side of things come from? Of giving up sodas. A lot of people try that. Very few people become certified tea masters. Where did that kind of seemingly peripheral obsessions start?
That's a good question. I think that. Ever since I was small, I remember just wanting to experiment with things. So when I was little, I remember I had the Nikes. My parents couldn't really afford to buy me the Nikes that would show the visible air pocket in the side because they were like expensive if you wanted to see like the air on the side. But mine said Nike Air. So I thought, but they were closed off, so you couldn't see that, but they were less expensive. So I remember thinking like, there's got to be a Nike Air pocket in there. So I cut open my shoe and I found the air pocket and I was like, whoa, it is in here. And then I thought, well, I need to be able to jump like Michael Jordan. So I like hot glued in some springs into the back of the flap that I'd cut open and to see if that would work and allow me to slam dunk. Cause I really wanted to slam dunk. That was like a big deal. So, it was like, I just always did things like that. And my parents were not thrilled when I would ruin things, but I was always cutting things open and trying to figure out how things were working. And so I think that as I got older, I kind of would obsess over certain things. And that's not always been a good thing. I think that you can kind of like ruminate and obsess over certain things to a point where you're actually doing damage. And that's scary. And so I have to be careful not to take it too far.
What is a project where you've obsessed or ruminated too much and it is suffocated the project? And then what's an example other way where?
Gosh, 3 weeks ago, I started feeling really bad, like just like really sick. And I was like, what is wrong? Like, I'd had pneumonia before a few years ago randomly. And I was like, am I getting like that again? Like I need to lay down. I need to like sleep this off. And I was like taking naps in the middle of the day, called my doctor up and I went and got some blood work done. And I found out that my liver enzymes were like 4 and 5x times the normal. And he's like, something's going on here. We need to like check this out. And we went through all the different supplements I was taking and I was trying I was trying sage, but in supplemental form, which is like a very interesting compound in that if you take sage at higher doses, it's very relaxing, kind of like what Bacopa does, which you have in your drink here today. And it just kind of chills you out, mellows you out. And it's like I found it was great for sleep. The problem is that long-term use of sage will really damage your liver. And I was combining that with some other compounds that could potentially damage your liver. And it just like really sent my numbers through the roof. And like, that's really scary.
And how long had you been taking sage?
Just a few weeks. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. But not every single day. But, combine that with, okay, I'm going to go out with my wife and have a couple glasses of wine. And then that's also taxing my liver. And like, and then combine that with, I take a low dose statin, which can mess with your liver. And so, you add those 3 or 4 things together and all of a sudden it's a bad combination. You're really doing damage. So it's just like, I've since dialed back the number of things that I take because I just don't want to push it anymore. I think I was getting a little too obsessed with trying to optimize everything.
Right. What's today's kind of morning and nutritional regimen?
Well, I would say that, so I wake up in the morning and I will have a cup of coffee or some type of caffeine, like green tea or something like that, like Essentia tea. I tend to gravitate towards like Japanese green teas, like Essentia. And then after that, I have to decide, well, I want to make it 13 hours regardless. That's like a bare minimum. That's pretty easy, right? So it's just waiting an additional hour. But I have to decide, is this a 13-hour day or is it a 16-hour day? Do I want to go 16 hours on fasting? And so most days, if I had a heavy meal the night before, I might go 16 hours, but I try to go 13. And then for me, it's okay, my first meal of the day is typically something I found out because I ran my 23andMe and my genetic data, and then I exported all of that into several different tools that analyze all of your genetic polymorphisms. That
like which tools?
There's the Prometheus one. I really like Rhonda Patrick's tool the best. So foundmyfitness.com. You can log in there and you can upload your 23andMe raw like zip file, and it will then analyze all of the different genes that you have and tell you, are there certain supplements that you should be taking? Are there certain things that you should be doing based on your genetic makeup? So
that's awesome.
It's pretty sweet. And one of the things I quickly realized is that I'm a really bad absorber of choline. And so that can lead to memory related issues. It can really lead to a bunch of different things. And so I try to get some choline in my body. And for me, that's eggs. And so eggs are just like filled with choline. Wheat bran also has a bunch of choline. So if I'm not going to be doing eggs, if I'm going to be doing a little bit of yogurt, I'll mix in some wheat bran that has choline naturally in there. But I've been trying to say, okay, forget high dose supplements. Let's figure out if there's ways to get this stuff naturally from our foods. Mm-hmm. So, if I can have 3 eggs, I'm getting a pretty substantial dose of choline right away. And
this is making me want to use the beauty of modern tools. I'll look up the exact dosage of CDP choline just to get your take. Because for listeners, this is an expertise that beyond tea that Kevin has in this realm, or at least knows more than the average bear. So let me actually look it up as you're talking about.
Yeah. So that's kind of like, if I can check that box, I feel pretty good about it. And then from that point forward, I've already had my dose of protein. That's great as well. In terms of that, I'm not a fan of a huge high protein diet, but I do like to exercise and work out. And so I like to have some supporting protein there for that. And then,
do you have like a protein goal each day?
Not really. If I just try to be mindful of how much I'm exercising. And if I have if it is a day of not cardio, but a day of like lifting weights, then I try to up my protein consumption a bit. But I don't take any supplemental protein or anything like that.
It's 300 milligrams.
300 milligrams is what's in here.
Choline.
Wow, that's pretty good. That's pretty decent.
Yeah.
So basically, after that, I try to switch to a greens mode. So lunch is going to be some type of like really healthy, eat the rainbow of colors, antioxidants, like as much greens, like kale, spinach, things like that. And just really get my daily serving of vegetables around lunchtime.
The concept of rainbow colors was so integral to me understanding my diet or where I was insufficient. Was just like, it's so simple. What a brilliant mnemonic device of just thinking through, all right, the rainbow of colors.
Yeah, am I eating the rainbow every day?
Am I getting purples? Am I getting greens?
Right.
Am I getting reds? Am I getting every color? I mean, it was so, the reason it was so helpful for me is it just highlighted so starkly the things that I was missing.
Yeah.
Because it is so easy to like browns and whites.
Yeah.
And, you can eat steak, baked potato, and or a burger and French fries, and quite literally like have 3 colors on the rainbow.
Right, exactly. So I try to check that box as well.
Yeah, and then and so then from lunch, and then is there a? Keep going with the daily.
Yeah. So I in terms of, do you want to get into exercise as well?
Yes, please. Yeah.
All right. So essentially, what I try to do is, because cardiovascular disease runs on my father's side, and my dad died of a heart attack, my grandpa died of a heart attack, like it's all on that side. I have to be very careful, and I want to keep myself in pretty good cardiovascular shape. And so, what I do is I typically will either do a long 60-minute, 13% incline, 1.4 miles per hour walk. And so I had the Peloton treadmill, I set it to 13%, and I'm just drenched by the time I'm done after an hour. And what I do is I take my iPad with me and I do a tower defense game, because it's 1.4 on the walking. So it's like you're pretty stable.
Right.
So you're not like sprinting or anything. And the time just flies by because I'm trying to like beat these, I'm trying to like get 3 stars on every single tower, every single level.
Nice.
And it just kills the time. And you're done and you had kind of fun at the same time and you're drenched in sweat. And that'll be my checkbox for the cardiovascular if it's on a day. And so I try to do that 3 days a week. And then I also try and do, high intensity interval training for another session, another day a week. So I'll just like say, okay, I'm going to go and do some quick sprints on there. And so I use an app called Seconds, and I do this these quick little 30-second sprints followed by 30 seconds of rest, and repeat that like 8 times.
And I know a bit about it, but do you mind explaining a little bit of the reason why you're doing sprints and some of the? I imagine it's for a lot of the cognitive benefits, but what else? What kind of has informed that type of training?
Yeah, I just, in looking, I'd have to go back and refresh myself on the different studies that are out there. But, over the last 5 years or so, I would say that the benefits, they've shown that you can get the same benefits of kind of like longer duration exercise and maybe even more brain benefits on the kind of neurogenesis side of things by doing these really intense short sprints. So it's a fraction of the total time commitment, but you see all the benefits of had you done a 45-minute or 60-minute run, and you can bang this out in 15 minutes and be done with it. Yeah. So it's, I like eating the rainbow where you're doing a little bit of everything and you're trying all the different, colors so you can get all the different variety of different compounds and antioxidants. This is that, but applied to cardiovascular. So I don't just want to do slow, high incline, walking. I want to do a little bit of the other thing I would mention is I try and get on the Peloton bike and do, 30 minutes of moderate kind of exercise. So I'm getting the sprints, the moderate, and then the slow, high incline. So I get a little variety of everything.
And then you add it all together. And if you're doing those kinds of optimized things, it sounds like it's only maybe 3-4 hours a week, maybe 5 hours a week.
And then I add in a sauna as well. Okay. So I try to do the sauna at least 5 to 6 days a week.
Do you mind? Okay. What kind of, why the sauna first off?
Well, again, going back to the science, actually, if you go onto Rhonda Patrick's website, and type in sauna PDF Rhonda Patrick into Google, something like that. Okay. You'll get linked to her PDF where she goes and reviews all the different, and Rhonda, by the way, she's a PhD scientist that she's brilliant, has a really popular podcast. It's amazing. But if you take a look at what she's done and where she's gone and gathered all of the different studies done on the sauna and put them in this one PDF that you can read about why the sauna, quickly it decreases cardiovascular incidence. The cardiovascular disease decreases quite a bit. So does dementia. So does all-cause mortality. So it's just it's a healthy thing across the board.
And I know I'm not talking to Rhonda right now, but what do they know the reasons why?
They think it's something called heat shock proteins that are activated at high temperatures. They think that has something to do with it. The other theory is that it increases blood flow, so your heart rate does go up. So it almost is like a cardiovascular type activity, because I can sit in there and just sitting there, I can get my heart rate up to about 120 or so, 130. So I go in and the data points to 20 to 30 minutes a day. The more days per week, the better. So you want to do at least 5, maybe 6 days a week. And then at a temperature of about 170 plus degrees Fahrenheit. So I do 180, 20 minutes a day, 5 to 6 days a week.
And can you do this in any sauna?
No.
Okay.
So this is the issue that so before I actually invested in buying a sauna for my house, I decided to try and get this done at the gyms, because we all have a gym that we have access to, or, most major cities do, where you can find a sauna. And I would go to the gyms and I would bring my own thermometer that I would buy, like a meat thermometer kind of thing. And I'd be sitting in there.
I love your structure around these things. It's so well thought through. Okay.
Well, I just want to make sure, if I'm going to be sitting in there and driving, 20 minutes to get to the sauna and going and sitting for 20 minutes and, there's the time commitment there.
Right.
Let's make sure I'm checking the box, right?
Right.
So I go in there and I'm like, okay, I'm hitting 150. Yeah, I'm sweating a little bit, but I'm not getting to where the actual data is pointing to the benefit coming from. So, I couldn't get there, and I tried infrared sauna. I couldn't get there. And I just thought, okay, well, I'm going to buy a traditional sauna, and they are expensive, but you're investing in your future, and you put you can pick up one of these units for $1,000 or so, maybe 1,500, and you got to find the right space for it. But you can do it yourself, and you can build a little closet somewhere or somewhere in your house or in the garage. And my buddy just recently bought one for, I think, $1,200 or so, and it's an all-in-one unit in the garage, and he convinced his wife that he was going to take over part of one of their one-car garage spots, and that's where he goes and sits in a sauna, and he loves it. And it's a really relaxing thing to do, and it can actually also decrease your core body temperature because the heat is kind of pulling it out from you once you're done, which will help you sleep better at night.
Right.
And so that actually doing it before you go to bed is such an amazing thing.
Yeah, I love taking a hot shower before bed, and I have since I was 6 or 7 and never knew why. And then through just reading through the research, realizing, oh, my body really loved when you take the hot shower, then your core temperature goes to your external. You start to feel hot, obviously.
Right.
And it's your body releasing its excess heat.
Right.
And therefore you're at a cooler body temperature when you're going to bed.
And we know now, based on the science, again, Matt Walker, Berkeley Sleep Lab, that a lower core body temperature produces higher quality sleep.
Right. Why We Sleep, a great book.
Phenomenal book.
I was just mentioning that book to friends that a whole book on sleep. I remember thinking, it came out maybe 2 years ago or so, and I remember thinking, like, do we need a whole book on sleep? And then I read it and I was like, I want 20 more books on sleep. It's the thing we spend 30% of our life doing. And
yeah, I had Matt on my podcast and I was just blown away by how much we know now, because a decade ago we knew very little, and just like we're starting to really unpack what's going on while we're sleeping and what it's doing in our brain and how it's helping flush out all these toxins and all these crazy stuff that's happening. The World Health Organization just classified a lack of sleep as a possible carcinogen, and that's a big deal. So they're saying, like, shift work and things like that it's possibly killing you, which is just, there used to be this whole thing in Silicon Valley that was like, sleep is for the weak, I'll sleep when I'm dead, all these like different sayings. And it just like getting less than 8 hours is decreasing your lifespan and leading to all kinds of crazy things like cancers and dementia. And it's scary stuff.
Totally. Kelly Starrett was on the podcast previously, and he's a mobility expert, just a physical exercise mobility expert. And he was talking about how he got into physical therapy to optimize athletes. And he was an athlete. He's like a championship athlete in his own right as I believe, crew, and became a physical therapist to optimize people. And then his whole career he's realized it's just on the basics, and it's the foundations that actually produced far greater results by focusing on them, and kind of using this analogy of if you're headed to the moon, you can be off by a few inches in the landing and be fine. But if you're off by a few inches in the launch, then you're going to be off by a million miles. Right. And so he's like, it's so funny that he spends 90% of his time only on just how we walk, how we stand, what shoes wear. And he's, these are like Olympic athletes he's helping. And
did you have him on your podcast?
Uh-huh.
Gosh, I need to listen to this one.
Oh, you should listen to it and get him on yours. He's phenomenal. Because he just has gone so hardcore on these foundations, and in the vein of below the line, it's kind of like, yes, you can see this above the line version of someone not knowing that they've been so productive because they're thinking through so much of this foundational work, whether it's an Olympic athlete or and working with Kelly Starrett, or whether it's just thinking through how important sleep is for the longevity of a career or a startup or literally the next 3 weeks as you're pushing through a really tough time in your career, how critical that sleep is. I know that when with 3 hours of sleep, the average person will lose, I think it's like 12 points in their IQ when they take an IQ test again. So it's
and their natural killer T cells go down. And so if people are listening to this and you haven't checked out the work of Matt Walker, a great place to start is his TED Talk that he just gave at the, not TEDx, but the proper TED. He was just gave it here a couple months ago, and it's out now. So if you type in Matt Walker TED Talk into Google, you'll find it, or you can link it up in the show notes. And it's a great talk. Yeah. And it's a great like 20-minute intro to like kind of get you excited about it, and then you can pick up his book.
Right. Yeah. The with Kelly, we were talking about this list of buckets to check off, and it's and this is kind of informed by his work and just a lot of my own rumination on this stuff. But it's the 5 buckets were sleep, and it was prioritized: sleep, then diet, then exercise, then stress management, and then exogenous compounds. And the first thing, sleep, just most foundation. Like, you can do everything else right, get 4 hours of sleep 4 nights in a row for a body that needs 7 to 8.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is the point of eating right if you're not going to produce great work, great whatever you're doing.
Right.
And then same thing with diet. You can get great sleep, you can exercise well, but if you're eating like shit, as they say, at least for working out. For muscle mass, muscles are built in the kitchen. It's like, it's what you're eating that actually, can matter much more than just your workout regimen. And then exercise, then stress management. Like, you can meditate an hour every day, but if you're getting 4 hours of sleep and you're eating like crap, then what is the point? And
it's tough though, isn't it? Because like at some point you also need to be able to have a little bit of fun. This is where I struggle with, because I like to go, and like last night, I'm in town for one night. My buddy's like, let's go get a couple burgers at Spruce. And we went down and I had a couple amazing burgers. I ate all of the bun. I had some fries. Like, it was awesome, Yeah. So you just kind of have to find that balance and know when it's okay to also partake in some of these things. And, I took my wife out on date night and we couldn't get out of the house because of the kids until 8, and we didn't get home until, 11:30. And then all of a sudden our sleep is all jacked up. But it's you got to be careful, because I know some people that are so militant about this. They're actually almost in some ways like creating more stress because they,
they're living on a clock.
Yeah, exactly. It's like too structured.
Right. Yeah. Everything in moderation, including moderation.
That's right.
I guess. Yeah. It's a really good point. It's, you can get obsessed with this stuff to a definitely unhealthy degree, especially in the exogenous compounds. You can just you can go crazy in supplements.
I mean, I have tried everything, and it's just like, why did I do all that? Like,
what was the craziest thing you tried that you're like, all right, that is not for me, or I don't think that's for anyone?
The craziest thing I've tried. Well, the craziest thing I've tried would be doing 5 grams of psilocybin mushrooms in a guided experience. Where I sat down.
Say awesome. I don't know what that's like, but tell me what that's like.
Yeah. So, you read Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind. You'll learn a lot more about this, but there's some really interesting research that's going on right now around the use of psilocybin, which is, for people that don't know, that's a fancy word for just magic mushrooms.
Right.
And taking the psychedelic, not in terms of I'm with some friends at a park and we're going to laugh our asses off, which is what people do on the kind of lower dose side, but in terms of an extremely high dose, like 5 times the normal dose that you would take, and doing it under the guidance of kind of a therapist and putting on a sleep mask and going inward. And really exploring your own psyche and getting to the root of certain issues that you may have, and being able to resolve those things in a way that you couldn't do, or that would take you, I guess the best description I heard for this is like, it's 10 years of therapy or 5 years of therapy in about 5 hours. So, after seeing all the data that was coming out of New York, and what they're doing there at the, I can't remember where they're doing the research out of New York now. I'm drawing a blank, but
it's not MAPS, is it?
No, I mean, they're obviously heavily involved in all this as well. But essentially, they are taking cancer patients that are approaching end of life. That, as you can imagine, you are going to pass away in a few months. It's really stressful for a lot of people. Just the anxiety, and like I was reading the story about this individual that he was pre-med when he was diagnosed with cancer. He knew he was going to die, but the curse of being kind of pre-med and studying this is he knew exactly where to feel his lymph nodes and look for certain signs of cancer. So he was rubbing like the areas raw in these different sites of his lymph nodes from checking them so frequently. Just imagine like internalizing and just like constantly checking and knowing that you're going to die, and like how much like, oh gosh, the anxiety and fear that's bundled in that. They put him on this program of doing this high dose psilocybin, did it one time, and instantly became at peace with end of life, stopped rubbing this, had a much more positive outlook on life, and was just finally able to let go and just like release all of that tension. Very powerful stuff. Also, with a lot of military people that are coming in back that have PTSD, and treating them with psilocybin, fascinating results in getting them basically essentially their lives back. These people are crippled with these types of fears and anxieties when you come back from war, and being able to shed that and release it is a very powerful thing. So I went in, did that. I addressed a lot of the issues I had with my father, who passed away at a time where I hadn't had those tough conversations that I wanted to have about certain issues I had with him, in the way that he was like verbally abusive when I was younger, things like that had just gone unsaid that I was able then to go in and address and figure out and resolve through these 5 hours. And I came out of it in such a better place. Just of this feeling of just release and relief, where you're sitting there so deep in your own brain that you're like sobbing for like hours on end while you're doing this experience. It's a very beautiful and powerful thing. So that was, I would say, the craziest thing that I've tried.
Yeah, not necessarily too much vitamin D. It was
exactly.
a hero's dose of psilocybin.
Yeah, it wasn't overdosing on vitamin C or something.
Right. Right. That's
a lot crazier.
So I haven't experienced that, but folks that have listened to the podcast now that I'm a complete open book on, that's the whole point of Below the Line. And the reason I haven't experienced that was I was actually on my way to what I thought was going to be 4 to 5 gram dose of psilocybin guided journey as well. So not like recreation with friends at a concert. It was really, I checked with the doctor, checked with my therapist, just knew kind of what I was getting into. Probably felt it's going to sound kind of lame, but kind of the calling to do it for a year, 2 years. And then got there. And then the guys, is 2 people, they were like, we're doing ayahuasca tonight. And just with the emails and everything, like you couldn't mention it. So it was just sound meditation was the code word. So I thought I was going to take psilocybin.
Please tell me you did that.
Yeah. And so I did it. I was like,
oh, great.
I was like, holy shit. Okay. We're going, we're freaking jumping right in. And that's like, level 3 stuff. Let's do it.
Yeah. If psilocybin's level 2, that's probably like level 8 or something.
Yeah. It was really, it was amazing how it happened, because I think I was, in many ways, I was kind of working my way up to that, and then just got to go right off the deep end, because I felt like it was a very safe place. And again, like I said, I'd done a lot of research. I probably smoked weed 3 times in my life before I was 30. Like, it was not a recreational drug. I don't really drink, but it was this curiosity and calling towards the therapeutic side of these compounds and all of the research coming out. But so I have not done psilocybin, but ayahuasca was very similar. It was 8-hour kind of journey that the only way I could describe it afterwards was maybe similar to your experience of the only way I could describe it was when my wife asked me, what was it like? I was like, it was exactly what I needed. And then, there's so many follow-up questions like, why? What was it?
Yeah.
And it was so hard for me to articulate, because it's not like, whoa, that was amazing, like a amusement park ride or like a movie. It was more like, I don't know, tasting something that you couldn't describe the taste, but you're like, whoa, for me, that was. And then also what was interesting is I didn't have like a desire to do it again. It wasn't like, the DARE program kind of routinized thinking of like, stay away from all of these types of compounds because they can develop habits. It was the exact opposite. I mean, I probably drank even less afterwards, just had no desire to do it again.
Yeah.
But yeah. It's interesting. Have you done mushrooms since then?
No. And that was several years ago, so I haven't gone back. I haven't felt the need to, but I think I would try ayahuasca at some point just to check the box, because I'm curious. I've had so many friends that have done it now and had really positive experiences. But I mean, this stuff is not even close to being addictive. If anything, you come out of there being so emotionally drained. You're like, okay, I don't know if I could. I don't want to go back in right now.
Right.
Like, it's pretty intense. It's a lot of emotions packed into one small set of hours. So.
Right. Yeah. It's the opposite of escape. Like it's confrontation with things that, you needed to confront.
Yeah. Alcohol escape, like, geez, I'm relaxed now. That's very much like I'm escaping something. This is addressing something. This is putting it right in your face,
Right. it's that sounds scary, but I think it's and not everyone should do it. You really should chat with a doctor, take it very seriously. I think it can be really dangerous for people to go around just saying, everybody should do it. But there is really, it's a safe way to confront something that is impacting your thinking. At least for me, it was impacting my subconscious or my conscious thinking every hour, every day. And it was like, okay, either confront this head on in 8 hours, and it wasn't, too scary. But
have you read Michael Pollan's book?
I haven't, but I have it, and I have heard. I've started the audiobook once or twice, and I listened to every podcast. This is kind of like a hack around reading a book. Whenever you write a book and put it out there, have you written a book, Kevin?
No.
All right. Well, whenever you do podcast episodes on it selectively, because by the time I added up the 12 hours I'd listened to 5-6 different podcasts he had done, I'd grasped a lot of the book. But what comes to mind when you bring it up?
Just that I think that the one thing that Michael was able to achieve is that he is a very credible kind of person in the space, like just bringing in a great writer.
Right.
And so, he came into this and said, okay, I'm in my 50s. I've never done any psychedelic. What is this all about? What's this movement about? What are we actually, people that are starting to move out of the arena of recreation and more into like getting serious about this? What are they achieving? And then how do these different compounds work? And what's their history as well? So getting into the history of the different compounds. And so, and he goes in and tries everything.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, I'm going to try.
The book,
I'm going to try acid once. I'm going to try psilocybin once. I'm going to try 5-MeO DMT once. I'm going to try all these things.
Iboga,
and he just goes and checks all the different boxes and reports back on what happened. And so I think it's just like, if you're just curious about seeing this stuff so much in the press these days, because it's popping up everywhere. And you want someone that, is not a hippie, is not a druggie, is not like just someone that's going to come in and report on this. You'll learn a lot, even if you're never plan on taking this stuff. You'll just learn a ton.
Right. Yeah. I grew up with a lot of mental illness in my family, and I was one of 5 kids, and have a brother that's bipolar, and my dad, he's 72-year-old Texan, just kind of straight edged type of guy, very conservative, very religious.
My entire family is all religious conservatives.
Yeah. And so yet he read the Michael Pollan book.
Oh, wow.
Gave
That's
it to
amazing.
My brother. Gave it to my brothers, who's about 37.
Wait, he gave it to your brothers?
Yes. He
so he's got to be curious about trying this stuff.
Yeah.
Are you going to take him to do a little ayahuasca journey?
Yeah, maybe it's its own, it takes like 5 years to ferment in the brain before someone like him is open to it. But yeah, maybe at 77.
It's funny. I gifted the book to my sister, who's very kind of conservative person. And, I really was hoping she could absorb some of this, and she's since kind of opened up to some of these ideas. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. And his book is, I think, one of the seminal moments of it becoming serious, because he's, again, the book is How to Change Your Mind, How to Change Your Mind.
Yeah.
He, he's been a bestseller a billion times over on everything else regarding food.
Mm-hmm. And
then he approaches something else that we can ingest and comes out on the other side with like you said, a really level take. And the dialogue is moving it's swiftly away from like recreation to, hey, we're willing to give people lithium. We're willing to shock their brains. Why not be open to this little fungus that grows on trees?
Yeah.
And it's
especially if you can actually truly quantify the results and say, this is changing people's lives. Like if you have someone that has gone off to war and is just a crippled person when they come back mentally, and this is proven to work, like, I just don't get how you can't say, let's try this.
Right. It's great to see the momentum moving in that direction. Okay. Going to, off of the things that you, ingest or do each day or not ingest in the fasting side of things. For listeners, Kevin has been a mainstay in Silicon Valley for
I moved out here in 2000.
20, almost 20 years. And actually started one of the first podcasts back in 2004.
Yeah.
Right when it was getting going, and has an amazing podcast right now, your own podcast, and great newsletter.
Thank you.
It's amazing stuff. And really love that it's it feels very, in a world where everything is like automated, it's very curated, very just thoughtfully chosen. And it's not inundating.
I try to only do, well, I haven't done it in a couple months, but that's the whole point, is like only do a newsletter when there's something that's really compelling to share with people,
right,
versus like, I've signed up for so many newsletters where they come every single week. And I think that's it's worked out quite well. Like people open it up. It's got a really high open rate because of the fact that I only do one every, month and a half, 2 months kind of thing.
Yeah. It's really great. The podcast is also great. I think the first episode is with Rhonda. And it's a great episode. What has been from that 2000 getting here to now? I know you live in Portland. We'll talk about what you're doing right now. What were some of the moments, the below the line moments in Silicon Valley that really kind of shaped who you've become as a founder, investor, creator? When you think back to like the years, moments that really shaped and defined the below the line kind of definition to who you are, which ones come to mind?
Yeah, I think that a couple things come to mind. Certainly just understanding that, in admitting to myself that I didn't know everything and it was okay to ask for help, I think was the biggest change that I made over the last 10 plus years.
What's an example of 10 years ago where you wouldn't
I think that, when I first moved to the Valley, I dropped out of college. I was studying computer science, and I thought, wow, it's 2000. There's a lot going on in the Bay Area. I need to get up there because the first Web 1.0 like boom was going on. Everybody was going public.
And where were you